Hello, hello, hello. I'm sorry I'm running late tonight. I was downstairs, busy as usual. Looked up, it was 7:20. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be late. But I am here. I'm so glad you are here. And oh, it has been a crazy couple of days. Number one, the weather has been phenomenal. So I'm very grateful for that. It's been so nice to just go out and sit. My hair's what is that about? Um, but it's so nice to go out and sit on the porch and enjoy that little bit of warmth and I heard my first little peepers out in the pond because we've got what they call a lake across the street. It's more like a pond, but it's nice. And the little peepers, as soon as it starts getting warm in spring, they start looking for girlfriends. So, anyway, let me see who is here. And I've got a lot to show you. I've been very busy. Okay. Barbara Smith, first person here. Hi, darling. There's my Marcia. Mary is here. Bonnie, hi. Oh, this is so good to see all of you. This is wonderful. Yeah, everything is budding out and starting to bloom, especially down where you are. You're a little lower on the, is it latitude, longitude? I forget, but it's one of those. You can tell I'm tired. In fact, let me finish seeing who's here first. Betty Meisner's here. Oh boy, Skunk today. He's looking for territory. The birds are all flitting around. I saw two male robins kind of fighting with each other. It's like, oh, come on. But it's exciting. And there's Denise. In fact, Denise, I don't know if you noticed, but I used your custom abbreviation for our site the other day when I set up our placeholder. So I love that. Okay. Oh, it's so good to see everybody here. Michelle the quilter is here. Hello. Hello. So the last couple days have been a little crazy. Um, I worked all yesterday and all today on this landscape quilt because I promised you I was going to try to finish it as much as I can. And then we're going to take a week off of the Thursday night only. And then when I come back, hopefully I'll have had time. I'm not promising, but hopefully I've had time to do just a touch more work on it. So that's what I'm hoping. But I've been working hard today on it. Got all yesterday. I finished the um filling out all the other little bits and pieces I hadn't put in there. Then I finished zigzagging it with invisible thread. I'm going to tell you too, I had the best, easiest time doing the monopoly zigzagging. The thread did not break, not once. So let me tell you what I did. First thing I did was clean the machine, put a new needle in. Okay, first thing. And I cleaned it really good. I thought, set myself up for success. That was my whole goal. So, clean the machine, put a new needle. Then I got my thread stand. It's just a cheap little thread stand because I know that thread is happy to feed off a stand. Most thread is. And with the monopoly being or you might be calling it invisible thread, anything you can do to make it a little easier on that thread, because that thread is more erratic, maybe is a good word, and it doesn't quite act like your normal threads. So I put it on a stand, put a bobbin, a cap, thread spool cap on top to keep it from kind of wanting to. Now, first I put a netting on it because it comes with a netting, but sometimes it doesn't like the netting. When I started to use it, it kept wanting to get the thread wanted to get hung up in the netting. So I popped the netting off. Okay. Then I took and used a very delicate, I hate to say delicate, but a very lightweight, nice shine, which means it's less likely to get hung up or be difficult. A very lightweight thread to wind my bobbin. So then I got that ready, started working, and even sometimes I'm really heavy footed. So I moved my speed down just a touch on the machine so I could be footed, heavy footed, but not go too fast. Did not break thread the whole time. I was it was doing so good. I even kind of did a little pulling it back this way and going over that way. I got kind of too full of confidence by the end. I thought, hey, this is pretty cool. So let me show you what I've got. And I used Joni. When Joni comes in here, we've got to remember to tell her I used her hint of why don't you do some couching of yarn for this one tree that I was worried about. I did it. Yay. So after I got it off, here it's just about done. And I put trees in the background. I redid some of my trees. I added more to the others. And here is where I did the couching of the yarn. Isn't that cool? I'm so excited about that. I think it looks great. And I had to kind of mix some of the yarns to give it a little highlight. So, yay. And so, been wanting to ask. They loved it, but I haven't finished it for them. I got so stressed and busy before Christmas that I lost my mojo. So when I get too stressed, my creativity goes, whoops, which way? This goes right out the window. But I hope you can see now. I've gone in to do some close up work on it. So, what I've been doing since I finished all of the stitching it down and couching the yarn, I've been taking some markers and going and refining the edges. That way it makes it pop. Okay. You have to be careful, and I'll show you that. Because if you put too much outline on it, it's going to look like a cartoon. So it's like this kind of balance between too much or too little. The main thing with getting that balance is you adjusting the tip of the marker or the permanent pen that you're using, okay? Because a thicker one's going to make it look more cartoony, and a thinner one will just give it just the right outline. I wanted to show you I had to put a new porch roof on it because remember last time I tried doing the Inktense and it just messed it up. So what I did to make it look like the board and batten that we put on the porch eave, I just put thin little white fabric, and I'm letting, whoops, hold on. I'm letting that do the work for me. I am not going to draw any line down the board and battens because if you've ever been past a house with board and batten, it's just the vague little shadow line it gives. So I'm happy with it now, and I'm learning to step back. So I'm going to get ready. Hi, Minnie. How are you? And so I'm going to bring the camera over and talk to you about some things I've done and what I still need to do. And so while I get my stuff out, and I found my Inktense. What happened is I left him in the bag with the boys' quilt because I hadn't finished that before Christmas and I left it all sitting there. I'm getting out all of my supplies. I was working on this upstairs and came down here for the show. All right. I think I have everything I needed. Also, if you're having trouble with your machine and you're trying to do the monopoly or thread painting, the first thing to do before you start that is clean your machine thoroughly. Because if there's too much lint built up, and especially under the bobbin case or under the bobbin itself, it won't move. It won't be as responsive. It'll kind of just flutter. And so the first thing to do, always, always, always clean your machine and put a new needle. When in doubt, put a new needle. You can get them on sale for like 5 needles for $4.50. So when in doubt. Now, if you hear that your thread gets hung up, which might put tension on the needle, or if you hit a pin while you're sewing, number one, replace that needle. Even if it looks okay. I'm the worst at going, oh, I think I can still sew with it. It's not worth it. Any little twist, any little warping of that needle, it will not sew right. It will give you a fit. So don't be selfish with machine needles. They say a machine needle lasts one project if you're lucky. So, and make sure you get a good needle. With thread painting, with the monopoly work, get a sharp. The universal needles are halfway between a ballpoint, which is for knits, and a sharp. So what you need to do is say, I'm going to be sewing through 3 to 4 layers of fabric with a little school glue. So let me go ahead and get a sharp needle. Then if you're using fusibles, try to find the machine needles that have the coating on them that don't prevent any of the sticky from getting on, but it helps. It helps. Then if you're sewing or thread sketching through fusible, I would keep a bottle of rubbing alcohol near you and a little bit cotton ball or something. And every so often, take and clean off your machine needle while it's right there in the machine. Just clean it off with a little alcohol. It will save you tons of problems. And I know I've told you this in the past, but I had a repairman fuss at me because I hadn't taken the paper off the end of the thread spool. See the sticky paper? See how that's just pushed on? He said that's a no-no. And the reason is if you just push that thing through and put it on your machine, after a while, the sticky glue part that holds the label to the bobbin will transfer on the thread stem, the holder in your machine. And what happens then is he says if it gets sticky enough, your thread spool will catch on the stickiness and stutter for a minute. It won't roll freely, and it can actually mess up the timing of your machine. Too many people, if they sew on something thick or heavy and they don't have a sharp needle, they can mess up their timing, or they can think they've messed up the timing. Always try a fresh needle. That can avoid so many problems. Okay? Because the rest is all fun and games, you hope, but you got to have a good needle. All right, clean machine, good needle. You would not believe I have been working on the UFO, that Ashley Walters blanket thing that I'm doing. You won't believe the lint in my machine. You get sewing, I put an audio book in, and I'm just going to town. And when I looked in that machine today, whoa. And I'm lucky enough, years ago, I found a Shark handheld vacuum that has this long floppy cord, long floppy nozzle. And I even found a little computer cleaning, vacuuming nozzle for that. And it's plug in, and I love it because everything goes into the little basket. So if you were to accidentally suck up one of the screws to hold your cover plate on, you could just open it and get the screw back. So that thing is wonderful because I can vacuum all in the machine. Never ever use canned air. Never ever blow into the machine. Okay. The reason is there have been repairmen that have opened up these machines and found a wad so thick and heavy of lint, and it was jammed in the mechanics. That will ruin a machine. So no blowing in it and no canned air. That's just not good. You can vacuum it though, and you can use your own home vacuum. Find a way to make the nozzle a little bit, put a little, I don't know, put something around it. Tape a hard, like a index card or something to really make the nozzle skinnier, and you can get out a lot. And worst comes to worst, use a little sewing machine lint brush and clean that brush out often because it'll hold on to your lint. All right. So I just thought, it never hurts to be reminded of how to keep your machine clean. And don't oil it unless the directions tell you to oil it. So, okay, hi, Polly. Oh, I was a few minutes late too, darling, but it's so good to see y'all. Okay, so, and we've got to tell um Joni that the yarn was a perfect, because see, this is a weeping cherry tree. And I thought, how can I'd like to replicate that because we love this tree. All right, so I've got my lid here for my fabric medium. When I need it, I'll have this sitting here. I have some white acrylic, and I'll show you why I brought this over. All right, now I've got some paint brushes. Let me see. Okay. I think I've got now what I have is some microns, and these run from 005 up to oh 0.8. So these are the very fine micron pens. They are wonderful, but they tend to be expensive. So I found these Marvy fabric markers. You can use these to put kids' names on their gym clothes, whatever. But you'll notice it does have a little thicker tip. That is perfect. So let's show you what that is really good for. All right. I want to give some dimension to this tree right here. So when you come in with something like this Marvy, and most everything I've bought here I've found on Amazon because I haven't gone regular shopping since before the pandemic. And oh good, Denise learned that too. Yeah, all of these. What's wrong with my Juki? I still haven't had my newer one fixed. It's something with the bobbin mechanism, and I have been trying to figure out where to reach the company and having a little trouble. And so I talked to somebody in the computer. They handle like the computer board or something of the machine. He said he would pass it on for me, but I don't think he has. But the one upstairs I actually did beautifully with doing the zigzag monopoly, and I'll show you that on here. All of this stuff has been gone around and gone around. Is the case cracked? No. No, I'm real lucky that it's not. Has your case cracked? But I'm a little bit more disappointed this time with the problems I have had with my Juki. I have taken it into the shop 4 or 5 times, but I'm going to send it back and see what they can do with it. So, because that's frustrating. All right. So what this is called a Marvy, Marvy by Uchida, Uchida, and I got a pack of these pretty cheaply, I believe. So I can come in here, and this is where, okay, where is my son? My son, oh, thank you, Marsha Hahn. Welcome. The case cracked twice. Oh, I'm starting to wonder if they're having a problem. Ooh, ooh, ooh. But my son is coming this way. So that's why I did some highlights on the cherry tree and highlights here. You can see where I've added highlights. That gives it dimension. But this little thicker marker is really good for putting some shadows on this side of the tree. And you can even do, you know, a little configurations, little bark stress marks on it. I also use it for up here defining the roof. Okay, and I'll come over here. Let me bring you in a wee bit closer. And I'm going, and this is where this pen is real good. I'm just going to try to run it right here at the edge of this roof. I tried using a ruler today and it was of some help, but then there were times I wasn't careful where I put the ruler, and that was frustrating. Then I'm going to go, there's only this little piece of the roof edge showing, but everything in here needs to be outlined. And because an outline, there's some things that can be outlined thicker. Most things, if it's real detail, it has to be outlined thinner. So here is the tip on this one. Then I'm going to go to, let me show you these microns. Now, normally you can pick a medium tipped micron and you're good to go. Here's a 0.3. Look how tiny that is. The smallest one is a 0.005. You can hardly see that one. And in fact, let me right here. Where am I? On the tree, I can, oh, that's cool. I'm doing some emphasizing some bark here. And with this 0.3, you can make it so delicate that you don't even realize you're looking at marker. I mean, when you look at what I did here, and I can, oh, that's wonderful. So I'm glad I opened this. Okay, so that's a 0.005. And then I'm going to, this is 0.03. And where is 01? That's a tiny one too. All right, so I'm going to put those aside because they are great for doing tiny, tiny work. Most of the micron pens that you get, that if you want to get some, you could get an 08, a 10, and a 12. That that does most everything. And let me see. Let me see this 12. Okay, so that's that size. Still, I think yeah, it is smaller than that other pen I gave you, but I like using an 8 is pretty good. So let me put my hand in front of it. That's a pretty good tip. So I like that one. All right, so now I'll move these out of the way. But between this one and an 8, I can usually do the majority of what I want. And I might, everything you do, whether it's this grass growing up over here, come along and give it a little outline. And it doesn't have to be perfect. If you can see, I like doing a natural hand on this because if you think about grass growing on the side of the sidewalk, a lot of times the dirt will kind of run onto the sidewalk and it'll give it an extra line like that. But just take the time and do a little outlining. Now, I think most of the dark should be on that side because you're not really seeing this part of the sidewalk. You're just seeing that edge of the grass from the angle. So I'm going to go a little smaller. I'm going to go to an 05, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to just outline the grass like this. And your grass doesn't have to be a perfect line because everything that is natural, there are very few straight lines in nature. People think, well, trees are straight. Not really. No, they aren't. Ask a what do you call them? A sawmill. How many of the trees they get in are straight? They're just not. But see, when once you add just that fine little line, it just and then I put the expansion joints from the sidewalk, and then I will come in. Okay, let's do this while we're right here. And let me see. Okay. I'm going to get a little bit of a dirt color. Maybe this one. Let's try this one. Okay. Oh, and you know what? I'm going to use this time, I'm going to use straight textile medium because I'm doing little tight work. I'm not doing just an overall wash. So, what I'm going to do is come along the edge of this sidewalk and I'm going to just put a fine line of a dirt color because sidewalks, unless you just power wash them, you know how they will get a little bit grungy at the edges. I'm going to put some of this up here because I did the closest color I had to concrete, but concrete does not stay all clean and nice. Now let me go get I have in this kit, I actually have neutral gray. That's really good. So I'm going to bring in, and I'm not going to do it perfectly. I'm going to kind of do a zigzaggy kind of coloring. And over here where the tree would shade it, it's going to be a little darker here to give it shadow behind that tree. So now let me get my paintbrush. I'm going to dip it in my fabric medium and then come in here. I think I brought paper towel. We get a rag here just to make sure. Mhm. I brought up all my fabrics hoping I have uh, I'm done with most of my fabrics. I don't know if any of you happened to watch Sue Carlson's polar bear. Polar bear. She did. I mean, you kind of watched her right through doing that polar bear, which is absolutely amazing. She used lace. Now hold on, I need a little bit of water when I get it a little dark. I'm going to put a little water on this side. And this way, when I get it a little too dark, just throw some water on there and get the excess. Okay, then come down here. Because my sidewalk is uh 55 years old. It is not white anymore. In fact, it's falling, which little layers of it are wanting to let loose and come up. And so I'm going to have to repair it. I've kind of been ignoring it, but that's not good. Ignored things never fix themselves. Okay, now hopefully when this dries, it will dry lighter. But if you're a little worried while it's wet, come in with the white Inktense and do some lightening here and there. But make sure it's here and there because you do not want it to look too sterile. And up on the porch, I'm going to barely put a tiny little color in, and I'm going to keep this. This is going to be the one that's going to clean up. So I'll use this brush with a medium, and I'll come in here and make the porch look a little more realistic. Now, I am using a little artistic license. I'm putting the most, like, I made sure there were no branches where I wanted my house light to show. Oh, and speaking of that, I'm going to do a little tiny something for this. I'm going to put a little bit of this white, and I'm going to give the what did I call it? I hope I didn't call it a skylight. I'm going to take this lamppost and give it a little light in there. And I think that is pretty. Also, while I've got this white out, I'll tell you why I brought it out. Let me, it's off. I bring everything out here to show y'all. Over here, I was trying to darken the area under the gutters because it would have some shadow. And I unfortunately got it a little too dark, and it even ran up on where the gutters are supposed to be. So I'm going to come in here, got a little too dark. I'm just going to come in here with a little bit of white acrylic paint, and I can touch that up. So always keep some acrylic paint handy, and you can come in and put it on and just rub it in with your fingers like this, because I just want to touch up where some of that Inktense. I am not as good with the Inktense as some of you are. I don't spend enough time practicing with it, and I wish I did. And let me see if this, yeah, I just noticed a little piece of this was coming up, even though I've zigzag stitched it. So I'm going to put some. That's when I use the tacky glue. The tacky glue is when I know that's where it's going to stay, and it is fine. Okay. So now I'm just going to get a little bit more of, and see, I like putting it on and then using the tip of my finger to, I wanted to give it a little shadowing color, but I got it a little bit too dark in some of the places. So I just kind of go in and just lightly touch it up. And I got a really narrow brush for this. All right, so let me see. I like looking in the camera because the camera sees things that I might miss. That's one of the things Sue Carlson talked about when she was doing her polar bear, is that looking at it a different way. Um, when she would come in the morning or before she would leave in the evening, look at it a different way, and you will catch things that you might not have seen otherwise. I always, when I've been working on a quilt, I will always go hang it up in my living room, and Mark and I will live with it for a couple of days. And we each find ourselves saying, well, that bothers me, or that. And that's what Sue Carlson's husband does too. And it's really helpful to have another pair of eyes. So, okay. I don't want, sometimes you got to be really careful in trying to shadow that you don't overwhelm the point of the piece. Now, right here, it's still a little dark. I'm going to come in here. And remember, do it in layers because it's much easier to add more than to try to take away. So that's good enough for now. Let me clean this brush, move this out of the way. So let's concentrate. Let's concentrate over here. Now, what I want to have a tiny brush. Do you notice that I put the trees here? That because I live on a very wooded lot, what I did is I found the colors of trees vary somewhere between a little bit of brown and a lot of gray. And so I put these trees in. Now I'm using a very fine little outline with this because I don't want these trees to be front and center. They will compete with the house, and the house is the whole point of the thing. So even though I'm using a really tiny micron pen, I'm barely touching. Kind of let it just skip along the surface. Okay, so that way they're there, but I don't want them in your face. Now, like I said, I would use most of the time I use the back of the fabric so it really looked pale, 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 pale. And oh, thank you. Oh, Denise, you're so sweet. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I love that. There's something about that watercolor painting that has me mesmerized. So now I've taken care of just doing just a tiny little bit of outlining. But here's, I want this edge of the roof to be nice and noticed. So I'm going to use the wider tipped permanent marker, and I'm going to come and outline the tree right here. I had to remove most of the fabric from this tree. It was looking way too tropical. It was a mess. I don't outline everything on the inside body of the tree, just certain things if I want to highlight them, but especially the outer edges. And if the marker, if you think it's going to be too heavy, switch up to one of the tinier microns. So, okay, so I get some of that tree outline. It makes it look intentional. You don't put a thick enough outline to make it look like a cartoon. Now I'm going to come down the end of the house right here and put a nice definite, that's the end of the house right there. And then I'm going to come put a little shadow behind this gutter right here. And I've already taken a finer micron and come in here and just outline the gutter. I don't want to compete with the shadowing I did. And in fact, I might put a little touch of a shadow right there. And this is where it comes out to go into the gutter right there. Then I came, okay, and this is supposed to go down. So then I came and I outlined my bushes, like you'll see right here with this one in front of the window. You come in and you outline like this, and then I'll give some definition. So I'll stop this bush here. I'll come over and take this one and stop it here so that you've got this one now in the background. And you can come in and just put some fine lines to make it look like it's in the background. See how it recedes and these pop out? So I did all of this. Now I need to come and run this right along where the bushes stop and the pine straw begins. So I run this along here. Then now I have the line of the grass where it meets the pine straw. So I'm just going to come in here like this with this thicker fabric marker. It's got a soft tip, so it's real easy to use. I use it everywhere that it's okay not to have, and you can come in and put like little lines to make people know this is mulch. You know, sometimes just a little tiny line. I came in with a tiny marker and put some little brick type marks in. This one's too, I would not use that one, it'd be too big, but you can come in, anything that's nice and small, and just put little hatch marks so they can see the texture in the wall. Then, ooh, I'm going to put a slight shadow line around this, like that. And I came in and did some good um, delineating of this tree over here, and then showed where it splits into two at the top. But coming in here and, giving some little lines and like where the branches, different branches are, it can really help a tree come to life, especially where it's really dark like this. But don't do too much, but just do a little bit, see how you like it, and know when to stop. Know when to push back from that dinner table because you're going to get a wee bit sick if you keep eating. That's always a good thing. So, where the fabrics change is a good place to do some outlining up at the top here. And then I'm not sure I like that top. I might add a little touch more to it. This tree was a pain from the beginning. This is my favorite tree. This one I feel like really came out pretty well. So, all right, now I need to get my fine micron again. Let me see. Nope, too big. Where this will work. And just carefully do just a bare outline on this tree. But by using the fabric on the wrong side, I give the illusion of, I give the illusion that these trees truly are in the backyard. If I had made them as bold as these, you'd have no depth. So the closer your subject is to you, the more detailed you want the fabric to be, the more intense the color. Everything that goes away from you, the further away, becomes grayer. Just think of it as that ozone that is blocking, there's ozone in the air, and so it it blocks some of that intense color. So closer to you, the more bold, the more you can see detail. The further away, it gets grayer, less detail, lighter. So now I'm coming along the gutter line and giving that some attention. But this is so that I can kind of show you what is my method, what am I looking for, what am I aiming to do here. All right, now another thing I did is I used some of this very grayed out green, and I'm going to cut the quilt about right here. So I just wanted a little bit of green at the top. If I put too much green on those trees, then you wouldn't see any sky. But if you have trees, at some point you've got to have some leaves. So, and I may add a few more. I really do like how these branches coming up, I mean, these trunks coming up look, because it definitely gives you the idea that, yes, Deb lives on a very, very wooded lot. All right, so now let me look. Also, keep little snips handy to nip threads. And I have some of these tiny little ones that I might get. But trimming any little bits of thread, trimming any little bits of the monopoly is something that's really good to do when you're sitting down and relaxing so you can take your time. Like here is a piece of the monopoly. I don't know. Whoop, you can barely see it. It's this probably about the diameter of a hair. But all of these little threads, I will sit in the chair with a really good light or a headlamp with a magnifying glass and light. But then I'll go around and trim up all these edges. And okay, so now we've talked about the house, talked about outlining, talked about giving texture. Here's another piece of monofilament. I don't know if you can see it. Whoops. It's amazing when you work on this. It unless you can see light shining on it. See, you can see the light shining now. But that stuff is fantastic. And if you have an area that frayed before you sewed, or even, you try to trim off your monopoly, and where is it? Oh, see, I lose it. I do lose it. But what was I going to say? But a good light will tell you where your monopoly is. Okay, up here, I was doing the zigzag down. I wanted to go across the tree to continue, but I didn't want to actually sew across the tree because I didn't want you to see any of this. So I will go back. What I did is I just picked, brought the needle up, moved the machine, then started again. So some of those places I have to go back and trim that up. All right, but here I've got the brick marked. I'm going to go over it one more time with a little bit of yellow and maybe a little bit of gray to darken some of this. Um, so I do still need to do that. But you see how this tree now, look how much more realistic. Ooh, and let me get that tiny micron pen. And that way I can come in here and do some kind of bark patterns, because look how tiny it is. And it really, and you can like maybe do some of the bark patterns in the joints of the limbs. And if you want, you can even, if some of the monopoly shows up in the zigzag near the edge, you can feel free to take the marker and go right over it just to help. But just doing that look how much more real that tree looks. Oh no, it's hard to find. Ooh, I wonder if you could write MGM and ask for, or is there a website or something? Ooh, ooh, ooh. And you know what? When you write that letter to MGM, send them a couple pictures of your work. I think that's phenomenal. You might have them want to buy them from you for their museum. They are phenomenal, girlfriend. I know, though, you'd hate to part with them, but boy. Okay, so now I've got the texture in here. I have added realism. Look how much, I don't know if y'all remember what that tree looked like when I first put it in. And then I have done the outlining around the house. Ooh, I know one thing I want to do. I want to take one of these small pens and kind of give the roof, give that give some lines that give movement and a look of the shingles that are on the roof. So that, even that little tiny thing, see this roof? That's the same roof as what I did here. Which one looks more realistic? So I'll come in here and just kind of do something like this. Don't do them all in a straight line. So now that part of the roof looks a lot more natural. Okay, another thing. I'll take a darker brown here with the Inktense, and right here where the leaves hang over, I'll give it some shading. Where the leaves are shadowing, and just kind of drag it down just a little bit so it blends in. And now let me get the brush and the fabric medium, And let's see what that looks like now that I did that. Be careful and don't let this medium go to any of the other fabrics. But here we go. And that right there, more. These are the things that really add to your quilt. I'm going to come in on this tree and do the same thing. And come up under here where it's being shaded by, and you can even use, whoops, I'm sorry, I was out of camera range. You can even shade, come in here and shade your leaves, your branches and your leaves. You will, if you are having a little bit of problem with some of the things you put in here, try giving it a little bit of shadow. And I'm going to darken this side of the tree. Okay, put a little bit darker here. Any time with a tree, you want it to look rounded. So more shadow goes on the dark side of the tree, but also please add some to this side because that will give it the rounded look. Now I'll get my little fabric medium, and you see I only pour a tiny little bit at a time. There's no sense wasting this. But now look at this. Now you'll see the tree start to come to life. And I don't put any dark right here because that it helps give it that illusion to roundness. And then I just come up here where I've done some coloring in the leaves. This is what Inktense can do for you. Now let me look. I have I have some greens here, and then I have a highlight, lemon yellow. So I can come in here, and if I want to put a little highlight here where the sun might be reaching it, that is another good thing to do. Okay, so I just come in here and scrub some of this on. Then I'm going to come in here with some of this green and put that in where I think it's going to be a little more shadowed. Then here is a darker green. Let me come in here and put it on the bottom of these branches. I try to choose fabrics. And if you notice, none of these fabrics, very few, are really supposed to be leaves. They just give a suggestion of that. So now I'm going to come in here and just try to give a little dimension because in light, you're trying to take a two-dimensional art and make it look three-dimensional. So let me see. So you do the best you at each stage. I've told you this before. Do the best you can at each stage to bring realism to it. And um then you just keep going, and then the more and more you add, you would be surprised how you can change it. Okay, I need a little touch more of the medium. Okay, and then I'm going to come back in with my lemon yellow and do a little more highlighting. And you're just thinking, where is the sun coming from and what part of what branch is it reaching? It's not reaching much over here, maybe a little bit here and here, but mainly what is facing this the way where the sun's coming. And any picture, any work that you do, you start with where is the sun? And that tells you what to put where. Okay, a little bit more up here. All right. So now I've got a lot more definition. And I'm even going to put, since the sun, it was an evening sun coming down, I'm going to put some of that yellow because it does cast a bit of yellow where it highlights. And now I'll come in with a little bit more of the fabric medium. And that way you just give everything that little bit of extra. Okay, in fact, you can come in with these trees that are up here. I'm going to put the yellow up here. I'm not going to put it down here because it's not going to be reached. The sun will reach where it sticks up above the house. Then I'll come back in again with some more of the fabric medium and watch it come alive. And now you've got the sun. See that? All of a sudden, you've got a feeling of sunshine up there. Isn't that cool? So just stop and think, okay, what's touching what? What am I feeling and seeing? Okay, then I can come over this tree and I'm going to put a little bit of that sun right here, right here. I'm going to, so even though you do the best with your fabric choices, you can come in with Inktense and you can, in effect, gild that lily. So it's just layer after layer, seeing what you could do. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of yellow or white down here because where branches are hanging down below the tree near the bottom, you will end up, they'll end up going lighter because they're not right at the end. Right here, they're dark because this shades them. But sometimes those little ones hanging out will capture some of that sun. Now I'm going to come in here and put this. You see how it brings that sun in? Then come up here and develop the highlighters up here. And it's just constantly thinking, going back and altering a little. Oh, I want to see what this, how this looks here. Okay, so that gives just that little bottom, just a little touch there. All right. So now I've got more to do to the house, but let's go. Let me wipe some of this medium off the brush because by the time I get back to it, it could be a while. All right. Now, ooh, I talked about, hold on a second. I talked about adding a little bit more to get this house color to a sage. So I'm going to take a green and I'm going to just do a light bit over this and be careful to hit the areas. The other day I was using, or gosh, was it a week ago already? Gee. All right. Now, then I'm going to take some of that gray, which I love. Where is that gray pencil? Here it is. I like it because trying to use charcoal gray is just, it's too dark. But now I'm just going to go over just lightly with a little bit of gray and get over here where I don't like these light areas. It's like I didn't quite put enough of the color on there. All right, then I don't want the house to get too dark because it's already the right dark intensity of our current house. I just want to make it a little bit more sagey. So I'm coming back in with a little bit of white just to help keep it from getting too dark. Now I'm going to come back in with the gray and just do a little shadowing like this, like back here, like up here, up here. Just a little shadowing at whatever I feel is creating, like right behind the bush here. You wouldn't believe but how much this adds. Even this bush right here, it's behind that tree. So now I'm going to, where is the brush? Yes. All right, let's see how this is going to look. And I just carefully don't rub it too much because you're mostly done here. And if you rub it too much, you might end up with it a little muddy. But let's see if I can get a little more sage And I want to take away some of the excess blue, and I want to go green. So that's why I add yellow, because blue and yellow make green. And I keep in a little of that white just to keep it from going too dark. So I think that's going to get me to a better stage of sage. And let me see where it's now wet. You can come in very carefully and touch up any little areas that need little touch more of that yellow. So that's one nice thing about Inktense is once that fabric gets wet, it's real easy to come in with the colored pencils. All right, now I'm going to put this aside. Let me clean off this brush. And, okay, let's see. All right. And I still have areas where I can come in and do shadowing, but like around the shutters and around the window. But I'm going to want to be very careful with that because it would be so easy to smudge everything up. And then I would have to start again. That white fabric is so tricky. So I want to be, when I like to do those type things are when I'm fresh, newly awake, that kind of thing. So now what I'm going to show you, I've shown you this tree, and I think I'm really going to love this. Now I'm going to come in here with this marker, and I'm going to do some outlining of the shrubbery, because it was just blobs, and now I'm going to turn it into something. I'm going to outline this area of the fabric. It's like I am going along with the shadows of the fabric, and it helps make it look more like branches and the leaves on a bush. Here is the dogwood tree I did. It is totally, this is the dogwood tree I did. It's totally lost. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to outline it. And then come outline here. And then the branches outline like this. Now I'm going to come up and outline the crown of this cute little dogwood, this little volunteer. I just love little volunteers. It's like, can I grow here? Sure. And some of my volunteers are my prettiest plants. And just outline the different fabrics to make so that you can see what the top of the tree is. Make sure the base is well outlined because it blends so much. And now I'm going to bring in, let's, I'm going to bring in my lemon yellow, and I'm going to do a little highlighting right here. So this stands out a little more. Then I'm going to highlight what might get, not the top of this one because the other one shades it, but just where I think that sun. Okay. One thing I do with these pencils, oops, I took the pencil sharpener out of it. I need to sharpen it. Oh boy. Yeah, I usually keep this tiny little pencil sharpener in that, but I did take it out, so I'll have to find it later because you see how these get really. Luckily, I've got a second one. Let me see if it's a little bit sharper. That yellow is something I knew I would use a lot of. So sometimes you can go look at Jerry's Artrama or whatever, and you can find these pencils sold separately for $2 or $3 a piece. That is really wonderful. But you can come here and put little highlights on all these bushes. The sun's coming this way. So on this one, I'm putting the highlight over here. Then I just want to show you because I'm just so amazed at what this kind of thing can do is then you put that on, you've instantly got a highlight. Now, if you have a highlight on one side, guess what you're going to have on the other side? you're going to have a shadow. So I come in and I put a little shadow at the bottom because you know the rounded shape, the base of it, you can't really see. So now, all of a sudden, I went from having a little cute little blob of fabric to a bush. Take care, Polly, love. And bye-bye, Bonnie, hun. Yep, there will be a Sunday show. But so now I've given this dogwood tree has presence, and now I've made this bush into a real bush, not just a cute little piece of green fabric. So remember, you don't have to have fabric that does it all for you. So there we go. Now that bush has its own presence, and I can even come in here and put a little. Look at that. That now is a real bush. This is now real bush. So you realize you can easily spend hundreds of hours on this. And I'll do one more and then I'm going to have to go too. I haven't had my dinner. But you come in here, you do your outlining, okay? You do your outlining, and this is going to be more of a branching plant. So I put some of that in there. But now I'll come back with the lemon yellow to highlight over here. Then I'll come back with my gray and I'll do some shadowing on this side and a little bit behind it. Oh, I forgot to put a little shadow behind them and put shadow at its base and behind it and on this side. Then I put a little bit of this. And notice that I always put the brush in the medium, I put it on the light part first before I go to the dark part. And so here we go. So I'm hoping I've kind of showed you. Now, let's say you don't have Inktense. Well, you can try to do this with regular crayons or regular colored pencils. It won't blend. You can't put the um, what is it called? You can't. And here I'm going to come give some shadow to this wall too. You can't put the fabric textile medium on and get it to bloom, but it would be better than nothing. I have even used oil pastels before, and that works really good. And you just blend them in with your finger, and it might make your fabric just a touch stiffer, but for art quilts it really doesn't matter. I'll have to give you a demo with some of the oil pastels, but you just use some, like an old piece scrap of toweling or old wash rag, and you can then blend it in. But like in here, I'm just right now going to give, you want this wall to look darker at the bottom. And so here we go. And then I've got just a little bit of this in the thing left. So now let's see how this wall's going to do. And what I'm trying to do is make it look as real as possible. And I'm bringing a little bit of that dark out into the pine straw. And then if I think it's too dark, I just come back with the tissue and just rub it off just a touch. Now, I don't like how dark that got right there. So what I'm going to do is come in with a little bit of orange to get a little bit of pine straw color back there, and a little touch of red. Okay. And then some of the white. I just think it went a little too dark. I get, like I told you, I get a little heavy handed sometimes. Now, don't worry because part of that dark is the wetness of the fabric. But now I think that the rock wall looks more grounded. And then, I could keep going, but um, you've got this bush kind of floating here. That's what I guess I'm trying to take the plants and make them look less like they're floating and more like they live there. Okay, they're not just coming floating by. And this is a great time to come in and give them little branches and they don't have to be full branches, just little bits. Like a little branch might stick out there, and it doesn't even have to be branches. It can just be where the different leaf patterns. So you can kind of come like this and like that. So um also let me do one more thing. I want this ground between the wall and the bush to be a little more shadowed, like it's being shadowed by the wall. And then I'll come in with this, and that will help. Yes, that really works to emphasize the wall and plant that bush. And I wish I had enough time for you to see it dry, but it's going to look really good. It's going to look really good. I'm going to put just a touch more lighter right down there. All right, so now that's all I have time for today, but I'm so thankful you can come back. This will be on there forever. So you can come back when you're working with your landscapes and you can look and say, okay, how did she do that again? And make it your own way. You might not want to do it just how I did. So make it your own way. But see the wall now and that bush and that tree. Look at that tree now. So everything is starting to look like it really belongs. I wish I had more time because I would love to get to some of these other plants. And the house itself is having a personality now. Everything is starting to come to life. And it's just like I told you, it's one step at a time. Do the very best you can with every layer that you work on. And then when you step back, it's really going to be alive. Oh, there's my little. I realized when I was upstairs, I said, oh no, I don't have my little birdhouse. So I've got to come put my birdhouse back up. Let me see. I'm afraid I don't want to lose it, but it's got fusible on the back. So let's see if it'll stay. Remember my little birdhouse? So there's my little birdhouse. But it's coming together, isn't it? And I told Mark at first, I was kind of like, sometimes halfway through I lose interest. I made myself push through this one because this, like I tell you, this house has been so good for us. And now I have a keepsake. And so from now on, my homes are going to get a landscape quilt. I wish I had done the house that I built, but this one has definitely been the house of love. The house that love built. So it's coming together. It's coming together. And the main thing is all of these little things you do are to give it depth and realism. You're trying to take a two-dimensional thing and make it look as much as you can three-dimensional. All right, everybody. Thank you. Oh, Laura's here. Hi, and hi, Miss Jody. Ah, Miss Jody, you inspire me. You inspire me. And this, thank you. Because Miss Jody, there's a lot of things I would never have tried without her. So this is all great. Next Thursday, I'm not going to do a show, but then the Thursday after that, we're going to start in with watercolor quilting. Our Marsha Hahn is the one that said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" So it's perfect timing. So be collecting all kinds of floral fabrics and sky fabrics and things like that. And we're going to cut them into 2.5-inch squares. And watercolor is where you take and you shade fabrics. You get as many different colors so you can have lighter sky, you can have lighter this flower blooming here, you can have white, mostly white fabrics to look like a gate. All of that. And we're going to show you how you blend these together. It's like pixelization, how you blend them together to make a landscape, a picture. All right, so I won't see you next week, but the week after, we're going to start the watercolor. And hopefully, I'll have more done on this landscape because I've got to be honest, I'm enjoying it now. I'm very much in love with it. So I hope you will try to make a picture of the home that means a lot to you. And then we'll get to see it. Take good care. Thank you for everything. You are the best. What did Laura say? Oh, Laura, you're so sweet. All right, everybody. Y'all are the best. I will see you Sunday. I'm not going to miss any Sunday shows, but next Thursday, I'll take a little break before we start into the watercolor. I'll see you Sunday. Got some new pictures to show you. Bye bye, everyone. You are the best. Bye bye, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Marcia, for being such a great hostess. You are just the sweetest thing. All right, here we go. And Mark is still loving that comforter. Oh my goodness. All right, take care. Bye bye.